What up racer, ItsJerone here and welcome to my very first video on F1 2022. The new game has come out today if you have bought the Ultimate Edition, and it will come out in 3 days if you buy the Standard Edition. And today we're going to do a 25% race, last to first challenge in the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. Now I came home at about 4:30 today, then did a bit of time trial around Canada, and then straight after dinner decided to record this 25% video. Now throughout this upcoming week I intend to try to do daily uploads. I'm still quite busy as a uni student, so I can't guarantee there will be a video every single day, but I'll try to do my best. Now, if you're wondering what this channel is about, if you're new to the channel, I'll mostly be uploading league racing videos and a couple of time trial videos as well. I'll be doing FRL, F1 Racing League, and I'm planning on doing another league throughout the week as well. Hopefully PSGL if possible, and well, it sort of depends on if my Monday evenings will be free throughout next uni season essentially. So I'm not sure what my second league will be, but I intend on doing PSGL just like I did as a reserve at the end of last year's game cycle. Now we're going into a 25% race. We're having the immersive pit stop experience on, as well as the starting grid immersive experience. So that'll be the first time I will be doing that. And 101 AI difficulty, I think this sort of suits me right now. I will keep flashbacks on, and I will be honest when I do crash, so you'll see when I use a flashback or not. Now, of course, the intent as well for me, as well I think for everyone here, is to learn how this new game functions, how this new game operates, how this new game handles, so that's why I'm keeping flashbacks on for now. But of course I'm going to keep it clean and try to make the overtakes as cleanly as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to disqualify ourselves from our one-shot qualifying, and then we're going to head into the race and start from last place. So what we're going to be using in terms of the setup, I'm sticking to standard setups for now, and I did notice that the top speed setup is actually quite decent. I decided to add a little bit more downforce to it. This high speed setup is also what I used in time trial so far. Now a little bit more on throttle differential felt good for me, and 53 brake bias is fine as well. Now, as I said, my intention was to try to disqualify myself from the session, but it went a little bit different, and that's because I took myself out of the session essentially. So I didn't even have to cut the final chicane or just straight up retire, because I crashed. Now enjoy the intro scenes if you're interested, and otherwise just skip through.
Hold on to the edge of your seat. It's time for another Formula One Grand Prix. If you want flat-out racing, you've come to the right place this weekend, as it's full throttle for 59% of this 2.7-mile circuit, peaking at around 210 miles per hour going into the final chicane. But that speed requires discipline, and there are more than a few close walls here just waiting to punish drivers with a heavy right foot. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. It's Sergio Perez on pole today, with Charles Leclerc alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Russell, and Sir Lewis Hamilton, and Fernando Alonso, Gasly, Tsunoda, Ocon, and Kevin Magnussen, Norris, Bottas, Daniel Ricciardo, and Mick Schumacher, Vettel, Albon, Guan Yu Zhou, and Lance Stroll. Latifi and Carlos Sainz will start from the back of the grid. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. And a warm welcome, of course, to my co-commentator here today. It's Natalie Pinkham. Now let's talk about Sergio Perez.
Well, it was a really impressive lap in qualifying to get pole position, but are they going to be able to hold on to the lead into the first corner with so many quick starters around them? One more thing to consider is the strategy element. How far can the drivers push these tyres, and who is going to blink first for fresh rubber? It'll be interesting to see if the leaders have to compromise their plan to cover off the cars behind them.
Okay, here we go. I know what you can do. Don't let me down.
Alright, so we have our new race engineer, RIP Jeff. You will not be missed actually. We'll leave you behind on F1 2021. And we have our new race engineer here today. I'm not even sure what he's called, but I do like his voice. So hopefully he's not as stupid as Jeff. That would be appreciated. We're going to start on the medium compound, and this will be my very first race. So let's see what happens. Now, a little thing I noticed that during your formation lap, your tires are 90 degrees, and in real life F1 your tire warmers will only heat up to 70 degree tires, so that's maybe a little thing Codemaster still needs to implement in this new game. But other than that, so far my first impression is really good of this game. The handling model feels really good, and yeah, I think this will be a very good game if this trend continues throughout the first couple of months. Now we're lining up on the grid here, very first time of doing this, and we're actually missing our starting position. We get a reset because we failed to park it properly, 1.5 meters off. But anyways, we have 5 red lights for the very first time, and away we go for the Canadian Grand Prix, and immediately my MFD pops up with a rear wing failure. Not entirely sure what that's about, but we're going to brake for turn 1 and we pick up damage. Well, it's 5 red lights, and away we go for the Canadian Grand Prix. Starting from last place as Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari, getting a relatively okay start, but there's no way to go really, so we're going around the outside for turn 1 and trying to cut back around the outside of 4 cars heading into turn 2, and we actually make it stick around Albon, Vettel and 2 other cars there, so we're up to P16 already after 2 corners. You can see Daniel Ricciardo's fighting with Kevin Magnussen ahead, and they're going quite slowly, but we're going to go down the inside of Guan Yu Zhou. Schumacher moving into the braking zone. That's one thing I noticed that the AI do, which is not really optimal, but we do manage to get past the Alfa Romeo driver as we're now into P15 with the other Alfa Romeo driver of Valtteri Bottas right in front of us. And let's see what's going to happen heading into this hairpin here. Usually this would be a very good place to dive bomb on previous F1 games, as Valtteri Bottas moves in the braking zone there, and he's trying to hang it around our outside as we were trying to go down the inside, and he actually gets better traction on that exit, but we're really close on his rear diffuser, so we get a very nice slipstream. Going to pull out the very last second, let the Ferrari engine do its thing, let it work, and we have less drag in a straight line, so we managed to get ahead of Valtteri Bottas there, trying to be relatively diligent with our ERS as we pick up a warning for track limits, as we're also going around the outside of Daniel Ricciardo now, who got a very, very poor exit out of the final chicane, and we're going around the outside. We're still side by side heading into turn 2. In fact, we're still side by side heading into turn 3 now. Who's late with the late breakers? Daniel Ricciardo sends it down the inside. We're actually going to keep it around the outside, and we get the move done for P13 in this race, as the 2 Haas cars are now going side by side here in the first chicane, as we now first sector, as we're now starting the second sector, as we actually hit the rear of Kevin Magnussen a little bit there, because he was quite slow mid-corner, and I do think we will not pick up any damage from that. We'll actually check after a couple of moments if we do have damage. Now heading into this hairpin, are we going to send it down the inside? Oh, you bet we will. Dive bomb from quite far back, and we make the apex very nicely. Leave Kevin Magnussen space on the outside, as it's now a drag race heading into the final chicane. And actually, in that hairpin we did touch Schumacher as well. Tire condition still looking good as we're defending from Kevin Magnussen, but what's happening in front of us here? Schumacher going really slowly, Russell and Gasly both jumping the final chicane, and I'm not entirely sure what happened there. They were nearly 3 wide heading into the final chicane of Canada, as we're sending it down the inside of Mick Schumacher, and we make our position on the Haas car heading up into P11. Can we make it a double overtake around the outside of Pierre Gasly? Pierre Gasly sending it down the inside, not leaving us a lot of space there. And to be honest, I quite like it from the AI that they really want to defend the inside on this year's game. And in real life it would be quite a dangerous move to stick it around the outside there like I did. On previous F1 games you would easily get away with it, but on this game it seems like the AI do want to keep the nose in there, and they're sticking it down the inside, so we have to be very careful when making overtakes around the outside, as we do pick up our 3-second time penalty already. So that means we've cut or extended the track 3 times. That's when you receive a 3-second time penalty. Not very optimal for the rest of this race, as we're nearly spinning here in lap 5 at the end of the first sector, and we do manage to hold our P10 at the moment, but Schumacher comes really close, and you'll see in a couple of moments that Schumacher couldn't really do anything. We clearly have the superior car relative to the Haas, so we'll be able to pull away even though he still has DRS. Now we're going quite quickly, we're fast forwarding a little bit, and you can see up front Russell, Norris, Hamilton, they're battling really hard. So even though I made that mistake, we've closed up by 2 seconds already back up to them, as now we're actually nearly on the rear diffuser of Lando Norris, as he's going side by side with his fellow Brit George Russell in the Mercedes car, heading into the hairpin, and nothing we can really do here, so we're just going to sit behind. Now the battery management is a really important thing on this year's game. You really drain a lot of battery on this year's game, so you need to be careful, you need to be diligent when you use it. We're having a little look down the inside of Lando Norris, who didn't get DRS, and we actually force him to go defensive, and we make a really nice switchback move on him. It's a double DRS detection point at the end of sector 2, so also on that straight Lando Norris didn't get any DRS, and we easily breezed past on the start-finish straight there. Skipping on a couple of laps, nearly at the end of lap 10 now, a couple of cars have made their way into the pit lane, especially those who have started on the soft compound tire, of course. So we're in P7 right now, but this is not our net position. And I've been saving my battery for a little bit, and as you can see, nearly 60% at the start of the straight. But now we're going to attack the Mercedes car of George Russell. He decides not to defend it, so we're going down the inside, very committed on the brakes there, and make sure we get the move done. In hindsight, I probably should have gone for the double overtake here. Decided not to use any ERS and sit behind Yuki, but I think I could have had Yuki Tsunoda here into turn 1 if I kept my battery on. But oh well, we live and we learn. So we're going to skip a couple of laps later. Well, a couple of laps, a lap and a half later. Well, I think it's only half a lap later. And it's nearly time for our pit stop window. And we're going to switch onto a fresh set of soft compound tires. And I wanted to get ahead of Yuki Tsunoda, who's most likely pitting as well, before we head into the pit lane. So we're going to keep our battery on side by side. Are we going to go side by side into the pit lane? Yes, we are. And actually, I'm not entirely sure how this ghosting system worked here, but we do manage to get ahead of Yuki Tsunoda as we perfectly time our pit stop turn-in, essentially. And hopefully we can get ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. And yes, we will. Yuki Tsunoda emerges behind us. So absurd scenes there, heading into the pit lane side by side. Yuki really didn't want to give out that position. He used a lot of battery for it. I had DRS and was using battery, and I was just about getting more overspeed. Now on this year's game, of course, as I said, tire warmers will only go up to 70-degree tires. So we really have to be careful when we head out of the pit lane. You can see tire temperatures are around 70 degrees as we came out of the pit lane right behind Lewis Hamilton. But you can see he's already pulled a second and a half on me. And I'm not sure if I was very careful here or if I just actually had this little grip relative to Lewis Hamilton. But it almost seems like the AI is not struggling as much with these cold tires as I was. Now it nearly takes a full lap to just get the tires back up to a relatively decent operating window. You can see here, heading into the braking zone, tires are just about getting to 80-degree core temperature again. That's the upper one of the two tire temperatures, so to speak. The middle one is the surface temperatures of your tire, and the bottom one are the temperatures of your brakes. So we're actually skipping a couple of laps. We're now a net P7 in this race, and this is the point where we're dropping Yuki Tsunoda out of our DRS range. It seems like after the pit stop window the AI will use quite a lot of ERS, and it's quite difficult to keep up with them, as actually Lewis Hamilton pulled nearly a 3-second gap on me. But over these past couple of laps we've been reeling in Lewis Hamilton slowly but surely, so maybe we might still be able to make a move for P6 in this race. Esteban Ocon and Fernando Alonso are too far ahead, so we won't be able to catch them anymore. But we do have our 3-second gap to George Russell. It's now more than 4 seconds, so theoretically we will finish P7, but let's see if we can get P6 on track. Now, final lap of the race, heading through sector 2. I managed to get DRS for this middle straight, but you can see on the top left, Lewis Hamilton's actually pulling away from me. So that means that on the final laps of the race, the AI will use a lot of battery again, and it will be really tough to keep up with them. So even when I had DRS, Lewis Hamilton was still pulling away by using probably a lot more battery than me. So the AI do save a lot of battery for the final lap once again this year. And it seems like we're not going to get him, as we are out of battery and Lewis Hamilton is 9/10 up the road. So quite an interesting first race, especially the midfield battles are absolute carnage, as we're actually going to spin in the final chicane of this race, and we're actually going to drop many positions. I just tried to completely send it. I just wanted to see what sort of happens when you do it, as we're actually going to try to emerge sort of safely back onto the track. And it means that in the end we will finish in P15 with our time penalty, but it doesn't matter too much. We live and we learn. Now let's first listen to Crofty and Natalie Pinkham again.
Great win. Natalie Pinkham, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
Well, this was a real team victory. They put together a solid strategy today that appeared well suited to the conditions out on track. The driver did everything that was expected of them in the moment to really execute the team's plan to perfection. A shining example of how F1 really is a team sport.
Red Bull put up an outstanding fight for the front position today, and it's great to see it paid off for them. They do so much for the sport that you can't help but be delighted by today's race win.
So you've now seen my very first race on F1 2022. I really hope you enjoyed seeing what this game looks like and what we have to do in this game in order to be fast. Now, battery management really will be a crucial thing. Tire wear seems to be relatively okay. Fuel usage around this track at least was relatively minimal for me. In fact, I think I saved a little bit of fuel throughout this race. And yeah, I think this is just a massive learning experience for all of us. Trying to be consistent on the pace will be quite challenging on this year's game. Handling model seems very good so far. I've had one game crash where I had a massive screen freeze all of a sudden and had to close the game. But other than that, I've really enjoyed my first day of F1 2022 so far. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more F1 2022 content, and mainly league racing videos, but also some tutorial videos and time trials. See you for the next video, which hopefully comes out tomorrow. Bye bye.